Right, let me tell you what was wrong with this bench before he starts telling you how brilliant it is now. It's a cheap woodworking bench, solid, made of hardwood, doesn't wobble much, and about £160 new. That's the entire list of good things. The vices have jelly jaws, not real clamping force. The Dogholes are 16mm, which nobody uses. And if you need to hold something awkward in the middle of the bench, there's nothing. Since we got it, he's been calling it the foundation, not the finished article. This video is him proving that.
So we are turning this basic woodworking bench into a proper woodworking bench. With the record 52 Vise, a classic one, a vintage Holdfast record 145, some 20mm bench dogs. We're making a stand for these vintage handplanes so that they will have a place to sleep. And adding one last thing that I really shouldn't be telling you about just yet.
Step 1. Flip the entire bench upside down. I offered to help. He said he was fine. He was not fine.
To begin with, I need to remove the old vise first, which it shouldn't be very difficult.
The vise itself was coming off fine. The mountain block holding it to the bench, however, was glued, and he decided to hit it with his hand.
Ow!
His hand against glued wood. He found a mallet. Moving on.
Alright, let's see how it would fit. So it needs to be like this.
The jaw face has to sit exactly level with the bench top, so when you clamp a workpiece, it doesn't tilt. Get it right and the bench top and the vise jaw are one continuous flat surface. He marks the depth with a Stanley knife, then the width is marked out.
What am I thinking? I have a proper jigsaw. There you go. Which needs a battery. Which needs charging. Alrighty, let's see now. And it's smaller for some reason. What? How?
The record 52 has 2 cast shoulders that need to sit in grooves into the bench edge. He presses a vise against the wood and taps it with a mallet. The vise marks itself, then pencil over the indentations and the positions are exact. 2 grooves, 1 per shoulder, cut with a tenon saw and cleaned out with a chisel. The goal is a tight fit. The shoulder has to be fully seated.
Yep.
It fits.
And I hit this flush to the top.
That's the critical result. There's still a problem. Underneath the vise body, between the back of the casting and the underside of the worktop, there's a gap. He tries a few off-cut pieces as packing, none are close enough. The calipers say they're 7mm too thick, which means one thing, thicknesser. In goes the timber too thick, out comes timber exactly the right size. He takes exactly 7mm off and the packing pieces now sit with 0 gap between the vise body and the worktop, perfectly transferring the clamp load into the bench. 8 holes in total. They all do different jobs. The bolt heads need to sit recessed under the bench, completely hidden but fully structural.
Now I need to drill here, but the drill won't sit perpendicular, and just for a few millimeters I need to remove the base.
This is the keyhole router bit. It cuts a channel with a narrow entry slot and a wider recess under it. The bolt slides in and locks into a wider section, held entirely within the bench edge, invisible from the top. The channel only needs to be as deep as the bolt head. He routes it carefully. Tests the bolt. Perfect. The packing blocks need 2 types of holes, a narrow one all the way through for the bolt shank and a wider, shallower one on one face so the bolt head sits below the surface. The correct order is a wider recess first, then the through hole, keeping the wood stable and the drill centered. He did it the other way around. It still worked, but wider first. The spade bit gives a flat-bottomed recess. The bolt head drops in below the surface, nothing proud, nothing catching. The fixing screws are shorter than the full block thickness. They won't punch through into the bench top, they just hold the blocks in position while the wood glue grabs. Once the glue has set, the screws are essentially redundant.
I'm really sorry for disappointing you. I thought I was recording everything and I wasn't.
For anyone who wants the full picture of what happened off camera, the packing blocks went in with wood glue on their faces, pressed hard against the underside of the worktop, the screws pulled them tight and held them while the glue dried. The bolt heads are seated in their channels.
And we are back next day. The glue is set. So now I'm just going to fit it, which it will need some wiggling.
Based on the casting marks, this record 52 Vise was made in Sheffield somewhere in the 1930s. These were built for decades of professional workshop use. The quick release mechanism, press the handle and the jaw opens in one motion, then wind in for the final clamp. New Vices with the quick release mechanism start at around £70. This one cost us £8 on Facebook Marketplace. Legs back on. And this is the position I have come to know as he is conveniently working on the floor. He does this every single time, every project, every floor level job.
Oh my, it's much heavier now. Right, let's see. Not bad at all. Nice, big success. Right, time to replace these. Oh no, I need to take it. Oh. Because the screws are behind. Oh no!
He marks 2 new pieces from plywood, using washers as spacers to keep the plywood slightly above the bottom of the vise jaw. Place the 2 pieces together, making sure they are sitting flush to each other. Place them inside the vise and squeeze them together, making them go flush with the metal top. If the screws go all the way through, the heads eventually sit proud enough to mark your workpieces where you're clamping. Half depth keeps them buried. Your work is safe.
I'm so happy I have it now. Look at that. Quick release from here. Perfect. And it's flush. If I put a piece here, you can see that it's perfectly aligned. This is so sturdy. And if I put it like this, I'm not able to move it at all, compared to the previous one that was not doing anything. Let's move on to the Holdfast. Now the Holdfast is to hold stuff here so that you can work on them. So this sits inside this ring, and this ring needs to sit flush with the bench. So how do we do this? Because this is 2 different circles basically. 1 that goes in and 2 that goes flush. Let's make a couple of jigs.
A Holdfast is about as simple as clamping gets. Drop the shaft through a hole in the bench, put the arm over your workpiece, fasten it. The first attempt at the wider circle comes out too large. He cuts a third one. He cut them with the jigsaw, but the jigsaw doesn't give a perfectly perpendicular wall on its own. So the inside of each circle gets finished with a drum sanding bit in the drill guide. This keeps the jig walls exactly vertical. If the wall leans, the router follows it, and the recess ends up tapered. Perpendicular walls mean a perpendicular cut.
And now that we have our 2 jigs, I'm going to use my router with a router bit that has a guide. Where's my 2-sided tape? Where are you, little tape? Where are you?
He's been looking for the double-sided tape for several minutes. It was on the shelf right there behind the calipers. If you're planning to fit a Holdfast yourself, the position isn't guesswork. The Record 145 pamphlet specifies a minimum distance of 162mm from the bench edge and 162mm from the bench front. He is widening one of the existing dog holes for this, keeping everything inside the correct zone. The double-sided tape has to hold the jig firm under the pressure of the router. First ring cut. This is for the shaft. He checks the depth with calipers. Goes again. Then the second jig for the outer ring. This is the recess for the base to sit in. Multiple passes, a couple of millimeters at a time, checking the depth after each one. Patient work. Here, he takes the jig off before the cut is finished, so he starts another pass with no jig to follow. The router has no guide. The cut goes outside the line by about 3 millimeters. What followed was not suitable for this video.
Why did I remove this?
He placed the jig back and finished the cut correctly. The 3 millimeter deviation is cosmetic. The base still sits perfectly, but he knows it's there. He pointed it out to me 3 separate times before finishing filming this section. The chamfer bit smooths the transition curve between the shaft hole and the base recess. Then the base goes down. He presses a screw tip into each bolt hole to leave a mark, drills the positions and bolts the base flush to the bench. It's not going anywhere. Drop. Perfect.
Now I can place a piece here, hold it down, and it won't move, it won't go anywhere. And now I can work with the chisel or whatever else I want to do with it. Let's do some dog holes. Now for the dog holes themselves, as we explained already, we have 20 millimeters, which is pretty standard these days, and these are 16 millimeters, which is not suitable. So how do we open it up and keep them perpendicular to our surface? I thought of this a lot, and the idea that I came up with is this step hole, whatever it's called, I don't remember. It's going to open it, and then we will continue with the router all the way down. Any other ideas? Please let us know in the comments.
The drill guide is essential here. If the hole starts angled, the router just follows that angle, and the bench dog rocks in its hole. Perpendicular start, router finishes the job. He works in passes, a couple of millimeters at a time, checking the dog fits after each pass until it drops the full depth cleanly. Then the chamfer bit, 1 millimeter of flare at the top of each hole, not decorative. It stops the bench dog from catching on a sharp edge and stops the hole from splitting under repeated use.
The point of this exercise is this. I can use the old vise, I can clamp long pieces and I can work on them. Now that this is ready, let's put it back to where it belongs, and then we will be taking care of the hand planes.
Everything back under the bench. This takes 30 seconds. He thinks it takes longer. The workshop organisation series was not an accident.
And because light is quite important, why don't I place a lamp? Right. Pretty old style. But it's quite nice to have a magnifying glass if you're working on something tiny. Now for the hand plane, I'm thinking of a setup that looks something like this.
Vintage hand planes stored wrong, rolling in a drawer, stacked against each other, get damaged. The blade chips, the sole gets dinged, the adjustment mechanism gets knocked out of true. A proper wallboard keeps each plane blade protected, separated from its neighbours, accessible in one movement. Every other month, he would get back home with one more. He has a collection of these at this point. They have earned a home. The base will be stable flat and won't move with humidity changes like the way solid timber would. He wanted to divide each plane with a spacer strip, but he didn't have any. So he resaws from a 2x2 on the bandsaw. The thicknesser then brings them all to identical thickness. Consistent strips mean consistent spacing between planes. It's the difference between a board that looks built and a board that looks bodged. The board gets clamped flat using the new addition, the bench dogs. Literally the first real job for them. Each divider strip gets a dot of superglue and a shot of accelerator for instant grab. Then brad nails for long-term strength. All the cuts are on the hand miter box. Not a powered miter saw, just the manual box. For small cuts like this, it's quicker, accurate, and takes up no space. Each plane sits touching the end strip and the bottom strip. Before the next divider goes in, a ruler drops in as a spacer. This creates a small gap on each side, so the plane slides in and out without any force. Glue, accelerator, brad nail, move to the next one. Trial fit to the wall, and immediately the top is open. The planes are held at the bottom and the sides, but the moment the board tilts vertically, they want to fall straight forward. They need a retainer at the top of each bay. He gets a strip of wood, clamps it in the vise. And this is its first proper job actually, and runs the shoulder plane down it to cut a groove. The top of each handplane body will sit inside that groove. He cuts the strip into individual pieces, one per bay, and glues each one across the top, superglue and accelerator again. The scraper gets the same treatment, and the spoke shave gets the nail. Second trial, the board goes vertical. The planes don't move, not one of them. One wall plug and one screw into the wall. The board rests on the windowsill for most of its support, and the screw just holds it flush. That's it. 5 planes, 1 scraper, 1 spoke shave, all off the workbench, all accessible, all protected. So, the thing he wasn't supposed to tell you about, he has been measuring that wall since before the shelving went in. Every time I came into the workshop, there was a measuring tape on the floor and a very innocent expression on his face. He kept saying he was just checking the space. It's a television. His mentors show playing in the workshop while he pretends to be tidying up. If you've been watching from the beginning, this is it. A garage that was full of boxes, a workbench that couldn't hold a piece of wood steady, a collection of tools with nowhere to live. Now it has a Vise that'll outlast both of us, a Holdfast that can ground a lorry, benchdogs, a plane wall, everything in its place. And a television. He's watching me on our channel right now, by the way, from a chair in the workshop with a coffee. I don't know whether to be proud or concerned. Subscribe, he's earned it. If we can do it, you can do it.